session. So this will be recorded, and I will post this recording on our parent and supporter orientation website. So in the event that you'd like to go back and rewatch this video, that will be available to you. And I'll put that link to the parent supporter orientation website in the chat in just a moment. So how this Q&A session will run is we'll really conduct it under the assumption that you have already viewed or completed our parent supporter online module, and you've already watched that campus safety video presentation. So really this Q&A session is an opportunity for you to ask any follow-up questions that you might have based on the information that you heard in that video. Now, if you haven't watched that video or if you haven't gone through the module, that's absolutely okay. I'll put a link in the chat to that module, and I would highly recommend that you go through that at some point this summer. There's a lot of very valuable information in that module and in those video presentations. So how tonight's going to run is Jeff is going to share his screen. He's going to show a couple of brief PowerPoint slides, just highlighting key information in his area. And then we'll open it up for questions that you folks have. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
All right, thank you, Liz. So our police department is a full-time service department available 24/7, 365. We are associated specifically with the university, and we offer the same services that you would expect with any other local police agency. We have a department of right around 22, 23 officers. We also have some security staff working downtown campus, an emergency manager, and then we operate a full-time dispatch center here, again, 24/7, 365. Like I said, we have presence on both the Allendale and Grand Rapids campus, especially as Grand Rapids has continued to expand over time. And so we operate and protect and support our students, faculty, staff, and visitors on both of those campuses. Certainly our focus is on the students since they make up the bulk of our community. And so we do a lot of engagement and connecting with them in addition to responding to calls for service and investigating crimes that come up with that result from their discussion. Let's see here. Share the slide. Oops, sorry. So a couple of the tools that we offer for students that are worth considering would be the Laker Guardian app, which is available to download free of charge. It's also known as the Rave app. We have it titled Laker Guardian, specific to Grand Valley, but you can download that online. We have a Safe Walk program available, again, to call our dispatch number at 616-331-3255. There we can walk someone anywhere from an on-campus location to another on-campus location. We have student cadets that are willing to do that well into the night, any day of the week and the weekend. And then our GVSU alert system, we have built-in infrastructure set up for students to be sent messages associated with important events or issues that are concerning the community. As your student starts their career at Grand Valley, their student email is automatically preloaded into the system for them to receive emails. Their primary phone number that they have listed will also be sent a text as well. These range from the very severe, in the event that we have an active shooter or critical incident, that's the way information would go out, to the less severe but still important, such as a snow day closure. But the infrastructure exists for us to send out mass messaging very quickly and efficiently. We have a lot of things and information available on our part of the website there. As you see, gvsu.edu/DPS. Phone number for our dispatch center at 616-331-3255. And then we're on social media, both Instagram and Twitter, under the handle @GVSU Police, which we post a lot of information, both informationally and also responding to inquiries and also trying to provide tips and tricks to try and mitigate things, prevent traffic issues, alert to traffic issues, prevent theft, things like that. So we're active in a lot of different ways to try and engage with our community. But at the end of the day, we are a police agency that offers service here for our students 24/7. So that is it. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Yeah, so you can either use the chat box feature if you'd like, or if you're comfortable, you can unmute your microphone and your video and ask us questions that way. So either the chat or unmute yourself.
Is the police department exclusively for the campus?
Catherine, the answer is generally yes. However, we can assist our neighboring agencies, specifically Ottawa County Sheriff. We have a tremendous amount of off-campus apartments that are just outside the campus. That is not a primary patrol area for us, but that is something that we can expand to at the request of the sheriff to assist in events or incidents that are occurring. Our primary focus is on the campus, but we can go across the border, so to speak, to help them as needed. Now, most of the time, that's related to incidents involving our students. So it kind of makes sense why we would have that partnership, but that's not a primary focus for us. That's an auxiliary function if needed.
Understood. And then I had not completed the entire module, and actually campus safety was the next one due for me to watch. So if I'm asking questions that were already on there, I can always watch that later. But I just wondered, how many do you have on staff?
So we have, oops, sorry, not moving them up enough. We have about 23 officers between patrol, community policing, detective, emergency management, supervision. So we have complete coverage with a sworn law enforcement officer on the Allendale campus 24/7, 365. Allendale, we are close but not exclusive. We have general coverage by police about 16 of 24 hours a day. We have security staff that helps facilitate that overnight. And then one of the general follow-up questions, just kind of anticipating, is kind of how we redistribute or how we distribute our staffing. And as you would expect with the college campus, we have a little bit more staff that work in the evenings and nights to be ready for interactions with our students. But we do generally have I know we have staff here essentially all the time.
Thank you. Can you tell me also about, is the campus equipped with security cameras and such? And are they around the dorms specifically?
Yes, we recently underwent a pretty substantial upgrade to our exterior camera system. That was completed about 18 months ago. We now have a large number of cameras spread throughout the campus to include parking lots, academic buildings, and to your point, housing buildings. Those are exterior based. We don't have cameras necessarily inside housing buildings, but we have access essentially to every entry and exit into all the on-campus housing. We do have some interior cameras on some of the bigger buildings, like the Kirchhoff Center or the Rec Center, and some, the library would be another one where we have some interior cameras, but we have a very substantial, and I would honestly rank our camera project up there with any other institution in the state in terms of being able to utilize that. Now, those are not monitored exclusively all the time, just due to the nature of the cameras, but we have them as a resource available to us.
Very good. And I saw Brandon's question pop up in the chat about the campus being well lit.
Yeah,
Yes.
he had a couple of questions. What types of situations do you respond to, and is the campus well lit?
So in terms of our number one response, I think with COVID kind of skewing it, we had a substantial reduction in larceny or theft, but I think that generally in the past has been our number one call for service with items that are missing. Most of that is preventable. We've found well over half and probably upwards of 2/3 of our larcenies that we generally respond to are preventable. Things where like car doors were left unlocked, rooms were left open, items in public areas were left unattended. I think after that, from an enforcement related standpoint, our number one contact is related to alcohol and then drugs specific to marijuana. We have not had a lot of harder type drugs here. We have very little, but we do have some. And with changing laws, with alcohol being a civil infraction, some marijuana being legalized from the state perspective, it's still evolving and where our interaction level is. But those are generally the types of incidents that we're responding to. And some of that extends to the use of alcohol or marijuana leads to other crime, for example, like it would not necessarily be we're responding to underage drinking, but we're responding to a fight. And then we, during the course of the investigation, identify that it was underage drinking that kind of led to that. For the second question about being well lit, I would suggest that it is. If you were to walk around on campus, I think there's very few places that you could walk around outside and not be able to read a book. That's kind of the standard that we've utilized. I think that also was highlighted by how we utilize our cameras, in the sense that we want to make sure our cameras aren't as effective if we don't have good support for that. And so our lighting helps produce good pictures for those cameras. So I think walking across at night, across campus, you're not going from desolate to desolate area. I think the other thing, sometimes it's good to remind parent supporters for their students, is that at night when people are walking across campus, they're always picturing this dark, desolate, desert-like area, when in fact it's often very busy for students. As we know, college students aren't the ones always to go earliest to bed. And so when I worked night shift and it was midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, it's not uncommon to see 10, 20, or 30 people walking around. So it's actually a fairly high visibility area, high trafficked area as people are walking around.
Do you find students utilizing the Safe Walk program?
Sometimes I would say probably underutilized for just a general perspective. I think we try and advertise it as much as we can. I think what we found is that the people that start utilizing it use it very regularly. Like, so for example, a student may start utilizing it after a 6 to 9 class on a Wednesday, and then they are the ones that are calling every Wednesday at 9:30 to walk from, let's say, Mackinac Hall to a parking lot. And they really get a lot of use out of it and it works for them. And then sometimes we'll see an uptick if there was something that happened on campus, like a crime, and we'll see a little uptick. But overall, I would say probably not used as much as we would like, or certainly as much sometimes as I think parents inquire, and then students just don't utilize it as much.
And then I do have one other question. Do you find many incidences that occur with individuals who don't belong there on campus, that might be coming on campus just as a non-student?
It's a mix. I think and even I'll break down what you kind of provide into 2 different sections. One is when you bring friends that you know, still not moving. For example, if a student on campus brings a friend from like MSU, where sometimes, or let's say a high school friend, I think sometimes they don't recognize that there's police on campus. And so there can be instances with that. There's also the component that you might be asking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, about just strangers that wander onto the campus. Specific to Allendale, that happens very rarely, just because of the nature of the location. You usually have friends. It gets a little trickier when it's friends of friends or friends of friends of friends. And that's where we've seen some issues in the past. For the Grand Rapids campus, it's a completely different setup due to the urban environment. And so you have people transversing through the campus on a regular basis. That's not to say that they always cause problems, but it's very different than the Allendale campus, where people will come through and walk through campus that are just in the city or may not be associated with the university. But that's just the nature of a more urban environment.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Well, it looks like we had another parent supporter join us. Welcome, Colleen. We are just kind of having a conversation. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask about campus safety, you can either put those questions in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask your questions that way. Okay, Brandon has another question in the chat. How can I prepare my student for their first semester to stay safe?
That's a great question. I think a lot of that has to do with open conversations with your student about their transition to college life. I think there's a lot of things to talk about. Safety is certainly one of them. Alcohol consumption, drug use, things like that. That has to be an open and honest and educational discussion with your student, to try and provide all the information available to indicate the risks associated with some decisions, some of the fallout, some of the reasons they may be attracted to that. I think the other thing is identifying ways to mitigate risky behavior and trying to find ways that they're connected with a buddy or a friend throughout the night who's able to make good conscious decisions. I think where we run into problems is when students are together without a sober or responsible adult or responsible friend with them, and poor decisions are made. And so just trying to kind of plan ahead and think about and just talk about some scenarios where they might be in as they transition to college, because they're going to find themselves in new situations and you don't want the decisions to be made without any prior discussion.
And can I ask, this probably does not affect the police department directly, but indirectly, are there any self-defense programs or anything offered on campus?
So we've been reevaluating that. That's another good question and not uncommon. Obviously, that got put on pause for close to 18 months now. We work closely. One of our campus partners is the Center for Women and Gender Equity. And we had kind of partnered with them on some classes. We've gone back and forth on the popularity. I would just say in the concept of self-awareness, self-defense is something that we're trying to continue the partnership. How we package it is kind of to be determined. I'm not sure exactly how that will be kind of displayed. It may be in a practical, it may just be in kind of a lecture setting to highlight things to be considerate of. But the concept definitely, yes. I just don't know how the class will look, if that answers your question.
Thank you. Okay, I'll ask another one.
They're doing great, Catherine. It's not a problem.
Do you guys, I'm a single mom. I've raised my daughter alone for 19 years, so I'm having a little bit of trouble here sending her off, but I visited the campus and it's beautiful. A couple of questions that have popped in mind is one that gave me cause for concern is those trails that lead back into the wooded area seemed kind of creepy to me. And then my second question, I'll just ask them both now and let you answer, is does the police department do anything on campus with the students, like just fun activities or things for them to become familiar with you and engage with you so that they don't feel anxious about having an interaction with the police?
Absolutely. So the first question about the trails, the concept of those trails is really for recreation and wellness. They're pretty well utilized in the daytime. Quite honestly, I've used them to kind of run and hike back there. And so they're actually a great set of trails. They're not, and they're kind of off away from the housing areas. I know the access point is kind of behind them, but they don't really overlap with the general trafficked area. If you're going there, you're generally going to use a trail to do something else. Now, normally that's recreation and wellness. Sometimes people want to go there to do secrets. And we sometimes wander on out there and talk with them about decisions that they're making. But in terms of people being there and using it as a way of cover to kind of come out and jump out, that's not what they're utilized for, just based on their location. And the source really is just for activity with them. The question you talked about interaction, absolutely. And I didn't really do a good job of highlighting this early on in our PowerPoint, but we have 3 community police officers who are specifically designed to do the things you talk about, engage with our on-campus residents, to talk to them in a non-incident related setting, because you bring up an excellent point. It's never fun to have a discussion with a police officer for the first time. Because it's very rare that it's in a non-enforcement related experience. And hopefully we can have those connections. We do fire alarms, we do programming to try and highlight alcohol decisions and risk and things like that. And we're actually very present and active in the on-campus residents, just walking around on a fairly regular basis to make sure things are okay. Now, sometimes that's viewed as being a little bit too much. I would submit the other way is we're trying to provide a regular component of a relationship and engaging with them. So I think our intent there is to do exactly what you're talking about. so we can build up that relationship. So when you see an officer, you're not just expecting or assuming something bad has happened. But I also understand the nature of me and my job and why I'm there and why I'll get second looks when I go to something. But that's not always our intent. Our intent is to try and engage with our community. And we have the luxury of being able to do that with our community police officers and then our patrol officers as time allows.
Thank you. And you mentioned the fire, and how close is the nearest fire department, EMS and hospital to the campus?
So the fire department, nearest fire department for the Allendale campus is Allendale Township Fire Department. They are approximately 2.5 miles away. They have paid on-call staff, and they are very familiar with our university, and they have a lot of connection and interaction with us. Hospitals here in West Michigan are pretty well established in a variety of different places. Most notably, downtown Grand Rapids has 3 major hospitals, both St. Mary's and then 2 Spectrum. Those are a couple of those are both level 1 trauma hospitals. But even around the area, Holland, Zeeland, Grand Haven, a lot of healthcare options out here in West Michigan and accessible. We use Life Ambulance to help facilitate that. Additionally, our officers are all medical first responders and have enhanced first aid medical training in the response. Downtown, even closer with Grand Rapids Fire and American AMR ambulance that's able to help.
Thank you.
I joined the call late, so you may have already answered this question, but when I looked at the parent and supporter orientation, they talked about some type of an app for your phone, like a safety thing where you could put in when you're leaving, and then if you don't arrive by that time, you would, I guess, get notified. Can you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can
speak to
expand on
that
that, not a
more?
problem.
Thanks.
So that is the Laker Guardian app. You can download that. It actually, when you search online, it would be Rave Guardian. We just have it kind of personalized to us as the Laker Guardian app. And what you're referring to is called the safety timer. So when you walk across campus, you would activate a timer to, let's say I'm coming from the library and walking back to my residence, I would activate a timer, let's say 10 or 15 minutes. And I get back to my residence, nothing happens, no problems. I deactivate the timer all as well. Something were to happen, either criminal or medical, then the timer alerts our dispatch or the potential guardian. So you could just do a roommate, a parent, or us as a police department. It alerts that person that the timer has gone off, and that usually prompts a response. And so when we've had that, if that's been activated to us, it automatically prompts our dispatch, and then we start checking into the nature of that situation.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find students utilizing that?
Again, that's another good point, Catherine, where we wish it was more. We get a lot of questions from parents that are asking about the app, and then there's just not as much utilizing it as we would hope. I think there was a change a couple of years ago where in the early renditions of it, you had to use the police department as your guardian. So we were the one that always got notified. I think there was some hesitancy to do that. So once it changed so that you could alert a roommate, a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a parent, things like that, we don't see those activations as much because it's not activating to us, but we're hopeful that's used more. But I think when we look at the downloads associated with it, you know, you have hopefully in an ideal situation between 5,000 and 6,000 people that live on campus. So if you have under 100 downloads, you know, that just seems pretty small, unfortunately.
Any other questions for Jeff on campus safety? All right. Do you report the incidents that happen on campus?
So we do have a instant log that's available on our part of the website where you can see activity that our police department has been involved in the last, I believe it's a week. And then the sheriff's office maintains a database, the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office specific to Allendale. And so does Grand Rapids Police Downtown will maintain a database of events, incidents that occurred on the campus as well. It takes a little bit of time for when the report is registered to when it's logged and stored and things like that. But there is a way to look back at that. And then, like I said early on, when we respond to an incident, we take a report as is applicable, like any other police department, investigate as is applicable, like any other police department, and continue to work on those things and report them as needed.
And can you tell me, my daughter's considering staying on campus next summer. Are you also full service, full staff in the summertime?
Yes. The only thing I would say is we generally have more people that take vacation this summer, but that doesn't mean we're any less service. We just have people that are taking more vacation.
Thank you.
All right. Looks like the chat's kind of slowing down. These have been absolutely fantastic questions. Thank you so much for your engagement. But also, please feel free to reach out over the summer. We know that this is a lot of information to process, and we realize that questions are going to continue to pop up as you process that with your students. So please reach out to us. As Jeff just mentioned, we are here available, eager to help over the summer. I'm going to put in the chat the Department of Public Safety website. So you can definitely go on there, look up information, and also there's contact information on that website if you wanted to talk to somebody. And then if you have any general questions, you can always email our GV family email, and that is the one that I will answer. And so, if you kind of have a question, you're not sure who to reach out to that email and we'll point you in the right direction. So thank you so much for attending our Q&A session this evening. We truly look forward to seeing you and your student this fall. Jeff, any parting words?
Like I said, I think that conversations that you can have with your student and laying that foundation are really important. You may not think that they're hearing you, but they do. We know that just from talking with them. Any advice that you can provide, even if they don't necessarily are receptive to it over the course of the summer, some of it will get through and help set them up for success.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, everyone.
You know our children well.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good evening.